All right, Black Goose TV family, what's good with it? I got some news that we need to go ahead and touch on. As you can see right over here, Eddie Hearn is once again saying some pretty controversial things when it comes to the boxing world. But as always, if there's any promoter that I'm going to listen to, if there's any promoter that I have no problem, kind of repeating what their sentiments were and maybe having some confidence in it being somewhat factual, Eddie Hearn is that guy. If there's anything when it comes to Eddie Hearn and what he says, and when it comes to reporting future boxing news, I usually believe what he says. You know what I'm saying? There's always, okay, let me see if this makes sense. But I do believe when he says certain things, he is honestly speaking from a space where he's like, I'm really going to try and get this done. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to get done. That doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. That doesn't mean it's going to take place. But when he speaks, I believe it's from a place of this is really what is going on in his atmosphere. Okay. I could be completely wrong about that. I could be just being kind of an Eddie Hearn fanboy because I think Eddie Hearn has revolutionized the sport of boxing in the last couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not going to get into why I feel that way or the reasoning behind it. That's a whole nother video. So if y'all want to disagree with me there, go ahead and do it. And I'm not going to dispute it because I don't got time for it. But let's go ahead and stay focused on the topic at hand, which is right over here. Eddie Hearn says he thinks Joshua's top choice to face in an interim fight is Wilder. So obviously he's saying, I think, and remember, this is just a headline. I haven't read the actual article. I'm gonna go through the article with y'all, Black Goose TV family. But in this headline, he's saying, I think. So right off the top, Eddie Hearn hasn't heard this directly from Anthony Joshua. I'm assuming AJ didn't sit down and say, I want to fight Wilder. But I do believe that he probably had conversations with AJ, and AJ probably gave out a plethora of names, and one of them might have been Wilder. Okay? That's my personal opinion, right? Before I even read the article. But now let's find out the facts. Let's go ahead and read the article. Salute to BoxingScene.com, by the way, and salute to anybody who's watching this at the moment. Rock with your boy. All right. Eddie Hearn, promoter for Anthony Joshua, believes his boxer's top choice for an interim fight is fellow former champion Deontay Wilder. Why he believes this? Let's find out. Hearn is already looking at the scenario of an interim fight to keep Joshua busy. Some of the names that have been kicked around include Luis Ortiz, Otto Wallen, and Joe Joyce. But Hearn feels Joshua would love for Wilder to be his next opponent. Look at it. We've got to look at the opponents per Eddie Hearn. AJ was talking last night about Luis Ortiz, which is very interesting why they're bringing up Luis, right? That's a PBC guy. Why would you take a chance against Ortiz? Anyways, Otto Wallen, that makes a little bit more sense. I can see Otto Wallen, having more of a chance to be fighting AJ. Southpaw, same as Usyk, blah, blah, blah. But that definitely not same as Usyk. Nowhere near the same similarities. Joe Joyce, which we've talked about. Make sure you guys look at my video from yesterday. I said that Eddie Hearn's, not Eddie Hearn, but Frank Warren said he would love for Joe Joyce to get that, to have that fight against AJ. And then Eddie Hearn goes on to say, even AJ talked about Deontay Wilder. Look at that. Even AJ talked about Deontay Wilder. I think if you said to AJ right now, who's your top choice, I think he'd probably go for Deontay Wilder. It's not an interim fight. Let's be honest. One thing's for sure, he'll be fighting the top 10 heavyweight, a world-ranked heavyweight. So before I kind of go back up to the top, just so we can have an awesome thumbnail, I just want to kind of reread this. We've got to look at the opponents. AJ was talking last night. He said Luis Ortiz. There's got to be a reason why he said Luis Ortiz first, right? We're going to dive into that a little bit. Otto Wallen, Joe Joyce, and AJ even talked about Deontay Wilder. So let's kind of take a deeper dive into the guys he chose, right? We're talking about an interim fight, okay? We're talking about AJ was supposed to have a rematch with Usyk, okay? Let's say AJ believes in his mind and say none of this, the war and all those things isn't happening. AJ fights Usyk again. AJ thinks he could beat him. AJ does beat him. What ends up happening for AJ? Now AJ is in a position where he has the plethora of picks. He can go fight Tyson Fury. He can fight Joe Joyce. He can have Usyk again. If Deontay Wilder decides to come back, which, by the way, I have a fire video, guys, for you a little bit later on Deontay Wilder. But Deontay Wilder comes back. He can fight Deontay Wilder. Joshua is back being the kings of the king. He's back being Johnny Depp in the Pirates of the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? In the first one, not the third one. So what I'm basically alluding to is if everything went how he had hoped it went, AJ would be obviously propelled back to the heights he was before the Usyk loss. But since that's not the case, and it seems like he's not going to get the Usyk fight, I believe that these opponent choices are strategic, very strategic. That's why I honestly think Joe Joyce has no chance, because Joe Joyce hasn't fought anyone or been in a not fight anyone, excuse me. Joe Joyce hasn't been in a fight with someone that for AJ, it makes sense for him to take that risk. Joe Joyce is the biggest risk out of all these names that we've heard. I know you guys say, Wilder, what? He's more of a risk than Wilder. The reason why Joe Joyce is more of a risk is because his notoriety compared to Deontay Wilder is much lower. So a lot of people will see him say, oh, he's going to fight Joe Joyce. That's an easy fight for AJ. Joe Joyce is slow. He's plotting. He's not that good. But in reality, Joe Joyce is fucking bigger than AJ. He hits harder than all these guys we talked about, except maybe Deontay Wilder. And his chin is the motherfucking GOAT. No one has a better chin than Joe Joyce between all these guys we talked about it. So if AJ takes that fight, he's actually walking into a bigger risk than the rematch with Usyk. So it makes no sense business-wise, okay? Right? But what does kind of set off my, spidey senses, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is that he named Luis Ortiz and Otto Wallin. Fluence, talk to me. I'm not in your brain. I'm not in your head. Why are those interesting picks? No one else is going to talk about this. Only you're going to talk about this. Most people are just going to read the article. Most people are just going to report to you, oh, look, AJ wants to fight Deontay Wilder, when that's motherfucking false news. Sorry. Let me give you the real, y'all. Let me give you what's really happening. I'm not going to get your hopes up. I'm not McDonald's. I'm not going to tell you a $100 million motherfucking dream and give you some bullshit, okay? I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to say, hey, this is the price of this shit. Yeah, it's expensive, but I promise you're going to love it. And you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to spend that money, okay? That's what Black Goose motherfucking TV is. And so let me talk about it. Luis Ortiz, right? Who did he fight previously before AJ? Very simple, very simple. Boxing heads, knowledgeable. Y'all know who I'm leading this towards. He fought Deontay Wilder, lost both times. So if AJ can't fight Usyk and AJ is looking for a Wilder fight, right? If AJ in his head saying, oh, I may not be able to actually ever fight Usyk again, AJ has to think, him and his team, what are the big money fights out there left for me? What are the two big money fights at motherfucking heavyweight? Please, guys, name the first one. Tyson Fury. Name the second one. Deontay Wilder. Okay? Now you guys see where I'm going with this, right? Luis Ortiz was beaten twice by Wilder. Otto Wallin was beaten by Fury, but supposedly considered a very hard fight for him. What am I alluding to? I know you guys get it. I don't have to keep saying it. It's obvious. If AJ fights either Ortiz or Wallin and, basically does easy and quick work from him, then how can you not call for a Wilder fight? How can you not call for a Fury fight? You see? Because originally AJ's path to Fury was through Usyk. Now that Usyk is somewhat out the picture, let's say Tyson Fury beats Dillian White. Let's say AJ decides to fight Otto Wallin and he just destroys him. What do you think people are going to be talking about? Look what AJ did to Otto Wallin that Fury couldn't do. And now we have a possibility of Fury versus AJ happening again. It's not rocket science, people. And then let's talk about Luis Ortiz. Say he doesn't take the Otto Wallin fight. He takes Luis Ortiz. Because there's speculation and there's good sources out there that are saying Deontay Wilder's going to come back, because that's up in the air still. We don't know if Wilder's going to come back. But say he gets a good reference or good source that tells him and his team, hey, Wilder's coming back and he wants to fight AJ. He either wants to fight Fury one more time or he wants to fight AJ. That's the only people he has a sight set on. AJ comes, fights Luis Ortiz, beats him. What do you think people are going to be talking about? We need to see AJ versus Deontay Wilder, okay? So there's a very specific reason why these two names were named. And there's a very specific reason why Eddie Hearn is using Deontay Wilder's name in AJ's potential interim championship fight. I don't know if any of these other box channels are going to tell you, but this is all talk. This is marketing. This is promoting. If Deontay Wilder has no a desire to come back to the sport, obviously Eddie Hearn using his name is not only going to draw, us, like our, boxing YouTube channels, bigger one, all, for us to, report on this and even do clickbait and say Deontay Wilder may be next for AJ. What does this do? This now has Deontay Wilder's team like, oh, God damn it, Deontay. It's all type of shit circulating saying you're going to come back and fight AJ. So now this puts pressure in Deontay Wilder's corner. If he was really thinking about coming back, he can't just come back and fight anybody. People are going to be saying, oh, you back? Well, nigga, AJ finally called you out. And that's the beauty of marketing. And that's what people don't want to tell you the secret is behind boxing business and getting all of you thinking in a way that actually is very disadvantaged or unbeneficial for fighters like a Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is not an option for this interim fight for AJ. Yeah, I got it in the title, but it's not an option. It's not even close. Wilder's not even thinking about him. Okay, AJ and his team is not thinking about him. Doesn't make sense. Joe Joyce, not an option. Too high of a risk, too low of a reward. But you know what's really an option? These two guys right here, Luis Ortiz and Otto Wallen. That's real options. And if you want me to be 100 with you, with Deontay Wilder's status and coming back, being up in the air, him also being with PBC, don't be surprised if we see Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallen as his interim fight until Usyk is ready to come back. That's my particular suggestion. That's my opinion. I want to know what you guys think about it. Whether you disagree with me, agree with me, we have a whole nother take. Hit the comment section. Like the motherfucking video. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, BlakGooseTV family, stay positive, stay beautiful, and don't let nobody stress you out. That's some bullshit.